Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Jodi Vandenberg-Daves. Mrs.
Sure.
Jodi, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
All right. Also, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity, Mrs. Jodi. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a consultant and a leadership strategist. Can you
Mhm.
please, Mrs. Jodi, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Jodi?
What I'm doing now, yeah. Well, I've been on kind of my own journey, being a professor for many years and exploring lots of different parts of the higher education landscape, doing a lot of mentoring with young women in particular, and then kind of in recent years branching out, and maybe in the last decade or so, more into adult education, leadership development for women, and leadership development around creating inclusive workplaces for anybody to kind of basically create more spaces of belonging, embrace diversity, work on transforming our workplaces. So I spent 3 years as the executive director of my regional diversity council, and I'm really trying to put a lot of things into practice that I've been teaching and learning over the years. I feel like I've kind of gone on a journey from from being someone who is very much in pursuit of knowledge to someone who's in pursuit of more connection and transformation. And so I love to work with anybody who wants to be a transformational, courageous leader. I just recently wrote a book called Leading with Courage, a career-long guide for idealistic women that I hope will also be read by people who don't identify as women. I love to work with people who want to empower themselves to make more inclusive workplaces. I'm especially focused on empowering women and all their diversity and leveraging the strengths that they bring, identifying and leveraging those key strengths. So I do a lot of different things. I love to be out speaking. I love to be coaching. I'm a writer and researcher. So I decided I needed to leave the university after many years and, kind of just start a new chapter fully into the role of coaching, consulting, training, leadership development, and finishing this book that I just finished.
And it's absolutely beautiful. As a person who has learned a lot, who have taught a lot, and you're using your what you've learned to empower a lot of people, most especially women, people who
Yeah.
might be weak, people who are in a position whereby they need advice, they need someone who will put them through. Because in our world today, we have to be with someone who can put us through, and you are doing that perfectly, well, which is very beautiful. But I also like to drive to your book,
Yeah.
Leading with Courage. Can you please, Mrs. Jodi, discuss more on the book? And do you also plan to write more books in the coming future, Mrs. Jodi?
Thank you for that question. The book is really about kind of taking a different look at the leadership and advice literature to women, because so often that kind of literature has been focused on here's how to get ahead, here's how to get the corner office. It has been somewhat light on values. And I argue in the book that as we lean into our pro-social, progressive, civic values, we actually lead better. We are in more alignment, and that is actually like empowering ourselves as women is very much connected to empowering other people. So this is compared to other kinds of advice literature, less transactional and more rich on values. The other ways in which I think the book is helpful is that it looks at leadership very broadly. You don't have to have a title to lead. You can lead from anywhere. You can honor your questions as a young person. You can use any platforms you have. You can team up with others. And so leadership I see as very expansive. I also see this book as contributing something in terms of looking at leadership over the arc of a career journey. So it's not just, again, it's not just a title. You can be a leader at any stage. So I even talk about what are you learning from the platform of being in college and maybe organizing on some issue? What are you
Mhm.
learning in early career? What are you learning and contributing in mid-career and even in late career? And how can we promote more intergenerational understanding, more intergenerational conversations? And another piece I bring in this book that I hope is helpful is helping people level up their context awareness. As a trained historian, context is just so important. And so, what is our historical moment in which we need courageous leadership so badly? And what are the different generations experiencing in this workplace? I have this huge, big, full heart for Gen Z and millennials who are struggling in our country with more economic inequality, with political chaos, with an attack on the values that we hold dear, many of us, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and just human decency and truth telling. Like those things are all under attack. And so to be in that crucible of a moment and to be trying to come of age and live your values, I've mentored so many students in my women's studies professor role as well, who have wanted to take those values and bring them out in the world. And I'm trying to help create a bridge for them, but also the people that mentor them and the women that are still, struggling with different facets of their career at later stages of the journey, and kind of trying to pull those pieces together and create kind of a collective mentoring document around the career long journey. As far as writing other books, whew, we'll see. I'm sure I will. I am a writer. I can sort of envision writing more about mentoring potentially. That's something very near and dear to me that I do some teaching on as well. And I have also kind of had long-term interest in motherhood and caregiving, uh, as it intersects with the workplace and women's life journeys. I wrote a book on the history of motherhood that was the first synthesis of the history of motherhood in the United States, pulled together all this historical literature. I won't do that again. That was huge. But I may do more around connecting those themes. I don't know. This book is new. I'm trying to ride the wave of excitement around this one.
And I'm so glad that you have brought something that teaches a lot of people how to lead with courage, because leadership is something that there are just little and few things that we need to try our best to understand, whether as a man who is in the role a woman who is in the role. We have to understand some specific things that we think are not really necessary, so that we can know how we could do things more better and stay more stronger no matter the circumstances we find ourselves. And also, I would like to drive to the point of women at this point, Mrs. Jody, because many women want to align their work with their values, but they feel pressured to conform because they are women, so they always feel that pressure at times. So what do you think are some of the first step listeners can take to start leading authentically, Mrs. Jody?
Well, I would say that does depend a little bit on where you are in your journey and where you are in your workplace. But I think focusing on the clarity of what are your values and in what ways are you feeling aligned with those values or out of alignment with those values in your current role and situation. What is your context? Is there room for the questions or passions that drive your values or not? And if you can make a little bit more room, who can you team up with to do that? If you kind of assess your context, and I think the book I wrote gives you some tools for that. If you assess your context and it really feels like there's not much room for making change and living your values, how can you just use that context for now to work on projects that you value, to build your resume, and to be thinking about making your next move in a way that prioritizes those values and clear goals. I think it's also really helpful to team up with others, whether it's, kind of a support group around this, a coach, people in your life who really can help see that how you can connect the value you add to your work with your skills and gifts and the values that you anchor in. And I think, yes, as women, there's a lot of part of the pressure to conform is that women are often taught to be very people pleasing. And there's a lot that we have, and so sometimes we overperform to try to do everything rather than staying aligned and staying true. And I never like to blame us for doing that because the research shows that we are often have to both be nice and competent to get ahead. And just being nice takes a lot of energy and can be kind of overdone, right? And with men, these are just averages, of course, but with men, the niceness is less required. The competence is more the piece. Now that can vary based on race and sexual orientation and other things. But for those of us who are othered in any way, we often have more kind of feeling like we have to prove something because we do often. And so the practice of staying true to ourselves is extra work, but it is worth the work because we're going to have more thriving, satisfying careers if we do that.
Mm. And that is why we have to continue to build a sense of values, because values
Mhm.
is one of the most important thing with us. If we can have that, and also what you said so beautifully, working with people and also aligning with people that are also doing what we are doing, because those are the areas we are also going to gain more ideas and also learn from other people that will find around us. And also, we have to continue to know, we do know that sometimes the trust might be there, speaking more nicely and making things more busy, but we have to know how to balance every single one of it so that we can lead more authentically and also make things to not feel to get to a point whereby we feel pressured and we won't be able to do a
Mhm.
lot. And I also like to drive to the point of boundaries. Women are, it
Mhm.
is really, really hard for women to set boundaries when they're in leadership.
Yeah.
It is really tough and it is not easy. I know as a man, it might not be something they worry about, but as a woman, boundaries are something they are always worried about. So, what do you think are the practical strategies listeners can use to protect their energy while still showing up generously for others, Mrs. Jody?
Oh, I love the way, excuse me. I love the way you put that, protecting energy while showing generosity. That is just really a beautiful, I like that's a beautiful way to put it. And I'm going to hang on to that. I really like that. Yeah, boundaries are partly about protecting our energy and protecting our emotions. And a lot of the ways that these systems work around gender and the way women are socialized is to be attentive and attuned to people's needs. That we are supposed to be the caretakers, the caregivers. This is true in our personal lives. It bleeds into our professional lives. We're also often in support type roles. We're concentrated in those kinds of roles where giving our emotional labor is just expected and often done for free. And so noting what you're doing around emotional labor is important. Again, it's that like reflection work of like, am I over pleasing, over giving, taking care of people's problems who could take care of themselves? Am I doing more than my role? So, some of that assessment. As far as the boundary setting, um, I made a couple notes. Boundary setting is a lifelong practice. And so we may set boundaries and then our boundaries will be breached again, whether through our own overcommitment, partly just because we're excited about something. I've overcommitted many times, not just to please people, but because, like, wow, that sounds cool. I'll do that. But then we have to kind of keep resetting those boundaries. And so I have practiced, for example, noting that I've said yes 2 or 3 times in a row, and I think it's time for a no next time. I can feel what's happening in my body. I can feel the stress levels going up. So I will probably be asked something else. I'm going to get ahead of it by saying, not at this time, probably, unless it's like just too good to pass up. But I think getting clear on what matters to you and what your core contributions are, something we were talking about a few minutes ago. What are your core contributions? Meaning, again, are you overperforming and maybe even doing things that are not going to increase your chances for career advancement and your visibility? Because while being kind and giving and caring has so much, of course, intrinsic reward in it, and it builds teams and all that other stuff, it can be exploited for women, and we can be seen as belonging in a support role because we're just nice, not really strategic. So the setting of the boundaries is super important. And that I talk about those external boundaries, what I will and won't do, but I also talk about the internal boundaries because our sort of internal systems can be overloaded by other people's needs and our perception of them. So, one thing that I talk about, and I learned this actually from Harvard Business Review, some article on boundaries, but it's about like internal boundaries. You can have a visual around protecting your internal boundaries. And the one that they talked about in this Harvard Business Review article that resonated with me was zipping up your core, like picturing yourself holding your energy in the core of your body. And I found that very helpful as a leader, a department chair, running meetings because there were all kinds of ideas and all kinds of sense of kind of rush because people need to get on to teach their classes and other things. And I could be really scattered in the way I was absorbing everybody else's energy and needs. And if anchored in my internal boundaries, I could say, let's stay focused on the goal, be a good listener, be in relationship with people, but don't get caught up in anybody's energy. Stay focused. And that internal boundary piece, I think, can be really helpful.
That shows that we have to work on the out boundaries and also the internal boundaries. And
That's
also
right.
we have to have the boundaries of what should I say or what should I do and what should I not do. We have to have those
Yes.
kind of boundaries. Those questions are things we have to set there so that we are if we are getting to a point whereby the boundaries is getting to what one should not do, we could know how we could try our best to restrict or see how we can reprocess ourselves because we have to, as a woman will always want to be nice, will always want to show the kind of sense of kindness. But as you said, one has to be also be strategic with every action one take so that we will know that the boundaries are there and we'll also know when we are falling into another trap. We will know how we could work on ourselves and then process things when the time comes. I would also like to dive to people, in our world today, women can be, as you said earlier, you've mentored and you've also, encouraged a lot of women who are also trying their best to build something. So some women might also be in a position where they are also trying their best to start their career, to build something. As a woman, I don't know, it is not easy as a woman to start a career. So what do you think are some of the mindset shifts that you think can help them build a foundation for an authentic leadership early on, Mrs. Jody?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a great question. I think that honoring your questions as a young woman is really important. It's something I taught critical thinking all the time, and we would raise all these questions. And then sometimes my students would graduate and they would get out in this work world and go, I don't understand any of this. Why are we not doing it this way? The more the values driven way is to do it this way. Well, you're not gonna overturn, the ways of doing things overnight, but you can start noticing your questions and honoring them instead
Yeah.
of getting sort of caught up in the way things are done here. You still have to do things the way things are done to some extent. You have to thread a needle, but if you honor your questions, then you are also like becoming more attuned to your workplace context. Are people really caught up in hierarchies here, or is there a little bit more flexibility? Are people mentoring other people here? Is it rigid? Is it flexible? Are there women in leadership? Are there people of color in leadership? What does it look like to access promotions here? Can I get mentored here? Ask those kinds of questions of your context, and that helps you also not take things personally. If, say, you don't get mentored or you feel like your values are affronted, you're exploring in your early career. And asking those questions is helpful. Getting clear on your values and really, I think, encouraging yourself whenever you set a boundary or you work from your values or you work from alignment. And then I think mentoring is key. I always tell young women to not only seek mentoring, but also to embrace the role they already have as a mentor so they can grow that role. Even my college students, I would say you're already a mentor. If you're an elder sibling, you're probably a mentor. If you've ever been an informal or formal leader on a sports team, if somebody has looked up to you for advice, you're already a mentor. So start noticing how you're part of that sort of long chain of supporting other people. And then you can grow that leadership because mentoring and supporting other people is absolutely key. Those are absolutely key leadership skills.
It goes back to we as humans, observant. We have to try to recognize and also observe some patterns that we do. When we start to observe these things that we do, when we can know when and what to do at the right moment, questions we need to ask, and questions that needs answer. So observance is very important. And also, as you said earlier, we do know sometimes we need someone who will put us through at times because life might be tough. But we as humans too, we also have to develop ourselves as our own mentors. To also know as a leader, we have to know the right thing, the wrong thing, and what we know we can learn from what we have seen right at the front of us to build one thing or the other. Those things are something that will build the sense of quality with us. It will build the
Mhm.
sense of authentic self with us. And that is what we are trying to bring out as a leader. We want people to see us being authentic and also see us with the sense of respect and honor. And that is what we want to develop. So we can be our own mentor and also develop one or two things in also those perspective in life, Mrs. Jody. And also, I would like to go back to your book, Leading with Courage. If you think our
Mhm.
listeners could take away one actionable practice from your book today to bring more purpose into their work, what do you think it would be, Mrs. Jody?
I think it's embracing that you're already leading and then thinking about what those strengths are, and identifying them and helping having working with other people to make sure you're bringing out those leadership strengths. And we know actually the research is pretty clear that a lot of strengths that women tend to develop through their own socialization are the very strengths that leaders need today. You can read it in any, just Google it and say, what are the top leadership strengths that people need? And you'll find emotional intelligence, you'll find flexible thinking, you'll find perspective taking, emotional agility, strategic disruption. That's, asking those questions, resilient self-awareness. Those are key leadership skills. So you're already leading, you already have some of those things. And so name and claim. That's what I always talk about. Like name and claim your leadership skills and your superpowers. And I would add that, and this goes back to your question about the young people,
Yeah.
but every job you have is a platform. It's a platform for learning, it's a platform for contributing, it's a platform for building your resume, basically. Be thinking about how each project that you're doing is going to look for you to describe it when it's done 6 months from now. How you're what you will have learned, what you will have gained, what new connections you will have made. So you don't have to be I have a lot of talk about high ideals in my book, but you don't. I also point out you can't always be fighting every battle.
Yeah.
You can't. You have to kind of think of yourself as a long-term investment and think of your values as long-term commitments. You won't be perfectly in alignment all the time, but use the platforms you have for yourself and others, and use the platforms you have to contribute what you can as part of the arc of your career journey.
The platform is always right at the front of us. Every single thing that we always need as a lead at one or the tools that we need to be a leader is always right at the front of us. We just need to
Mhm.
see it, try our best to know how we can use it, and also try our best to make it more better so that we can also be someone that will be recognized, someone that will be respected in the society. We do know some people will say it is not easy to be a leader. Some people will say it is easy, but it's just determined or how we try our best to give the sense of leadership, how we try our best to make ourselves more stronger, more reliable, and also how we can make ourselves more authentic. If we can develop the sense of authenticity and also develop the sense of the roles that we know we can do to develop ourselves no matter the challenges to find in life, I think we'll be in a better shape with leadership because leadership goes with learning, development, and also trying our best to see what we can do in the next row and row and row. It doesn't stop. We learn every single day as a leader. And that is why I'm also glad that you're also bringing this to also encourage others and also make people learn one or two things through your book and also through the platform that we've also brought up for you to discuss about. So I thank you for the time and the opportunity, Mrs. Jody. Mrs. Jody,
Thank you so much.
there's also a question I normally ask during the end of the show, Mrs. Jody. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Jody, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Jody?
I am always about honoring women's history. And there's so much in the stories of the women who have gone before us. Some of those women who have gone before us are sitting next to us in the cubicle in our offices to bring this back. There are still baby boomers in the
Yeah.
workplace. Some of them fought battles that young women don't necessarily know about or understand. And creating intergenerational conversations is important. But as you say, too, we can go much deeper than the workplace and the current generations. Women have been resilient throughout time. Women have been making things work with their resilience and resourcefulness in spite of systems that make it difficult. And so, as a historian of motherhood, I'm always talking about tapping into that history of resilience and resourcefulness. You probably watched your own mother be resilient, resourceful, and persistent. And so those are pieces from the ancestors that I think are of great value. Listen to people's stories, and there's so much to learn.
I completely agree. From the past, there are a lot of great women, women who did great things, who fought a good fight. It is not easy to be
Mhm.
a strong woman on earth, most especially our time today. It is tough, and that is the quality that we know we can do as a woman. We should try our best to also, develop the sense of strength and the lessons we've learned from those that have come during the historic time, because those people really did great, and we want to also adapt, learn, and also develop ourselves in those perspectives as a woman. As I said, the pressure is there, but despite the pressure, a woman can still become a woman and can still conquer every single thing that comes by the way. And one one will always try to respect such person. I also want to use this opportunity, Mrs. Jody, to thank you for the time and the opportunity you've given to me to speak on this very important and sensitive topic, to be honest. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jody.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Jody. Bye bye.
Oh, okay.